Hi everyone, and welcome to this fresh episode of Focus On, where we showcase an African company and the waves they're making throughout the continent. My name is Fifi Peters. Today the focus is on Kamoa-Kakula, and we'll be chatting to Ben Munanga and Olivier Binyingo, both from the Kamoa-Kakula Board of Directors. Welcome, gentlemen, to the show. Ben, just to begin with you, I understand that this is one of the biggest new businesses in the DRC, so give us a bit of the detail. Tell us a bit more about the new kid on the DRC's mining block.
Kamoa-Kakula is a mine in the district of Kolwezi, province of Lualaba. We sit in an impressive geological deposit. Our concession spans over approximately 400 square kilometers of surface. And you look at an estimated resource of 2 billion tons, of which more than 40 million tons of copper contained in the resource can be extracted. We are one of the largest mines in the world.
So quite a sizable project there that you have described, but Olivier, perhaps you can also give us a bit of the background story as to exactly how it came to be. Where did this all begin?
Yeah. Well, Kamoa-Kakula is a beautiful story also because it is a new discovery. It is a greenfield project, and when you speak to the geologists of our company, you can still feel the excitement of the early days of the discovery. And basically the deposit is located close to what was historically known as a prospective area around Kolwezi, but in fact it's just, at the time it was considered just outside of that area. So typically at the time when geologists would wander off and would see that the rocks would change, they would turn around because basically they had gone too far and there was no prospect of finding a deposit. And that's where Ivanhoe Mines is one of the shareholders in the Kamoa-Kakula project. The geologists of Ivanhoe Mines decided to challenge the preconceived ideas and to stay around, to follow their gut. And now we are sitting with a project that demonstrates that doing that and sometimes challenging those preconceived ideas really pays off. And
in terms of production, gentlemen, so Ben, you had given us a brief detail of, I think, perhaps the medium-term roadmap in terms of 2023 and 2028, but I'd like to understand more of the shorter-term targets as to exactly when production does come online and whether those targets are set in stone. We've seen a couple of projects being set back by the coronavirus that is still with us. What is the situation looking like in terms of operations at Kamoa?
In terms of the plant, the metallurgical plant with the concentrator, it's complete. It's going through commissioning. And you look at the supporting infrastructures, the power supply infrastructure is ready, commissioned. We've got sufficient ore on the surface in stockpiles ready to feed the plant. So I can tell you this year we will be producing a sizable quantity of copper to reach the market.
Yeah, I would just like to add to that really all credit goes to the local management team and the local employees, because as you said, it was a very challenging year. And despite that, not only did the project remain on track, it in fact has been fast-tracked. So I think it's really exceptional, and it's not a coincidence. It's really because of the efforts that people have put into it, sometimes spending a lot longer away from their families than in normal times. And here we are, just basically around the corner from production start.
But Olivier, just to add to what you did mention regarding the management team that you did, congratulate and really give accolade to making this project, be at the stage at which it is and move according to the timelines. But I'd also like to understand the role of the other key stakeholders that are involved here. I understand government has got quite a sizable stake here. There's a lot of community involvement. So just give us the entire picture of sustainability as it stands right now.
Yeah. So obviously, as you said, there are a number of stakeholders, and that goes from the shareholders obviously down to the more local stakeholders that you mentioned. So I'll focus on that. The government, national government, obviously a key stakeholder, starting because of the fact that it is the host country, and therefore we need to be respectful of the host country, but also, and obviously the host country sets the rules of the game in terms of how you develop a project and how you operate it once it goes in production. But also the DRC government is a 20% shareholder in the Kamoa-Kakula project, which is an important element to add, because once production starts, that also means the start of a period where significant revenues will start being generated. So investment is almost there in terms of phase 1 and to some extent phase 2, but the revenues will only start flowing obviously once production really commences. And so the government will benefit both in terms of taxation. They already have benefited, but that will increase with production, but also over time in terms of dividends as a 20% stakeholder. So that is an important element when you speak to the national government. And then if you zoom in a bit more and you look at the local communities surrounding the mining areas, on the one hand obviously there's employment. The project currently employs about 8,000 people directly and indirectly, so indirectly through the contractors to the mining project. And then the last element is local businesses that are being created. On the one hand, just because of infrastructure being there, because of more activity being there, but also because of activities of the teams on the ground where basically entrepreneurship has been stimulated and where businesses have been created from scratch with local communities that today are, well, that basically were given seed capital to start up and the anchor client, Kamoa-Kakula. And basically you are setting the stage for a sustainable business that will continue supplying to the project as it expands, but also that can diversify in terms of client base and therefore can even have a standalone business that is not fully dependent on the mine. So I think there's a number of elements that feed into local community empowerment thanks to the project. Yeah,
sure. And I mean the inclusivity pipeline that you've just described there is a balance that we have seen, not one, or a balance that hasn't been the most easiest to achieve for a lot of mining companies doing business on the continent, involving all stakeholders across that value chain. So Ben, perhaps maybe a bit of secrets as to how you guys got it right, but more importantly, what it is like doing business in the DRC at this stage.
Doing business in DRC in many sub-Saharan countries is being able to rely on basic infrastructures like transport, like electricity supply and others. But where we could do, we made a contribution, especially on the electricity side. We partnering with local power utility. We've invested hundreds of millions, and we will continue to invest to support our business and also to support the largest economy.
And I'd like to add to that, because obviously, and that's I guess where your question came from, the perception about the business environment in the DRC is not always in its favor, to say the least. And I think you have to admit that it is a country that comes with its challenges. But when you take a slightly longer term view, say 20 years or so, then the story is more nuanced than the perception would want to make you believe. If you go 20 years back and you look at elements such as security, political arena, economics, there's all a very positive trend, a very positive story to tell. Security 20 years ago, the country was still divided in terms of different rebel forces occupying parts of the territory and the government, the official government occupying another part, whereas today there are still elements of insecurity in some parts of the country that come with human tragedies, but it's really a lot more confined and a lot less disruptive for business. And lastly, if you look at the economy, and that's where I'll focus specifically on copper, at the turn of the century we were sitting at production of about 100,000 tons per annum, the whole industry, whereas over the past few years the DRC has constantly been the #1 producer on the African continent. And last year, which was a challenging year, was producing 1.5 million tons of copper in a year, and that has been consistent, going beyond 1 million tons. So if you take that longer timeline, then there's really a positive story to tell, and that's where the Kamoa-Kakula coming online being an additional contribution to hopefully changing that perception slowly And that's where we want to be also ambassadors, not only for the project, but also for the country as a whole.
Olivier, just one last question, as you did mention the clean element or the green element, as it were, climate change being a really serious thing that we need to consider as we try to emerge from COVID-19. A lot of mining companies you listen to nowadays talking about their road towards carbon neutrality and the contributions that they are making in reducing carbon emissions. So just help us understand from an operational point of view how you are planning to tick your green boxes.
Yeah, it's broader than the green box only. I think it's about how do you produce copper responsibly. And on the one hand, there's the what. What do you produce as a mining company? And for us, Kamoa-Kakula, it's copper. And copper is one of those key metals for the clean energy transition. And it is, to a large extent, technology agnostic. So even in the different variations you can have in terms of electronic vehicles or technology in terms of renewable energy, copper is a constant and doesn't really move too much depending on the technology being implemented. But a very important other factor, and that comes to carbon neutrality, is how do you produce it? Because it's one thing to produce a good metal, but if in doing so you have too much negative disruption, then your net impact longer term on society may still be a negative one. And then the last two things that we mentioned before in terms of that producing responsible copper, is obviously creation of sustainable jobs, and that's where we're investing a lot with a specific transformation center, empowerment programs, transformation programs, and empowering the communities. And if all those things add up and all those things result in a net positive long-term impact, that's when you have a responsible operation.
Yeah, it sounds like quite a good balance there between people, planet and profit. But gentlemen, we'll have to leave it there for now. Thanks so much for your time and watching this edition of Focus, in which we had the focus, of course, on Kamoa Copper. My guests were Ben Munanga as well as Olivier Binyingo. And from us, it's goodbye for now and see you again soon.